Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick, and we got the boys back together again tonight. How we doing, boys?
Good.
How we doing, Mr. HR?
Good. Happy to be back.
All right.
I'm doing all right. Happy to be back. I'll tell you that much.
Awesome.
I'd rather spend my Monday nights doing this. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now we just need the sport to start.
Brutal.
At any time now.
Yeah,
And we're waiting. All right. So before we get going, make sure you like, follow, subscribe our page. You can subscribe on YouTube and keep the interactions coming. It's been amazing. All the feedback we've gotten, the comments, the conversations. It's been awesome, and I have so much fun with it, as these two do as well. We do have a Twitter handler now. Handler. A Twitter. I guess we got both. Sean is going to take over our Twitter, and he'll be on there too. So go ahead and find us on there. Leading
it's
off
very
tonight,
bare right now. I
go
just
ahead.
kicked it off a couple of days ago. So, I was going to say, I just kicked it off a couple of days ago. So it's like very bare. But we'll get some stuff. We're going to get some. It's just going to be another platform, I think, that we're going to post the link to the shows. So obviously it wouldn't be live, but it would be after they're recorded, put it up there, and just see if another place we can get some interaction. So I'm hoping it'll do well for us.
Perfect. Can't wait.
Awesome.
All right. So leading off tonight in a fashion, typical Joe West fashion, we missed the call last week when he retired. Just kind of like, he's only missed calls for 45 seasons straight. So we are going to have a little bit of tribute to Joe West to start off the show. Like I said, 45 seasons, 5,460 games. So that's a lot of missed calls in your career. We're going to talk through some of these. Some of these are pretty brutal, but we're going to show some clips, and then we'll talk about them.
Here we go.
Now Joe West has called time. A beach ball got out of the stands out in right field. Joe doesn't look too happy about that.
I mean,
Although
it's a
Joe
beach
doesn't
ball,
look
dude.
that happy
Relax.
most of the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Was it called?
But that's what kills me about Joe West, right?
Right.
It's like that happens in every ballpark, every night of the summer. Like, why?
Right.
Who cares?
This one is absolutely amazing. This is one of my favorite clips, for sure.
Stank guy going at each other all game long.
I mean, why does an umpire pick that fight with a pitcher?
Well, Joe West is not.
Why
going
does
back behind
Bumgarner
the
eat?
catcher.
Like Sean said earlier, the pitch wasn't
So
even
what is
close.
he doing? He wants to throw him out or what?
Well, and why is Posey not
Not
saying
gonna back
anything or
away
even
from
stepping in
confrontation,
front of him to cut off the stare
just
down?
make it.
Because Posey knew it was a ball.
Which guy are we talking about
Yeah.
back in the way?
Probably.
Well, come to think of it, hey,
There's no
those
need to.
guys-
He's still staring at him. Joke.
Both from the same part of the country.
And then he
Time
calls
out, Bridget.
time. Oh, God. Amazing.
Iago and the plate umpire Joe West waiting for him. And West is saying, throw the ball. Joe's putting a little heat on Mondesi. Look at this. How do you like that? Strike. And he hasn't come up to the plate yet.
Batter's not even in the box.
Altuve, right field, back there. Bats at the track. He leaps, and it is out. It's off a fan. No, they're saying off of bats. It is in play. They may be calling it interference.
Right field umpire Joe West saying that a fan interfered with Mookie Betts as he leapt to catch that ball.
And Joe West quickly signaled fan interference.
Mookie made a great effort to get to it.
Did he get a glove?
Looked like the fans got Mookie's glove.
That was it. The fans did hit his glove.
Pause that for a
The
second.
spectator interference clearly prevents a fielder from catching a fly ball. The umpire can declare
Can you
the
pause it,
batter
Harrison?
out, and out is the call. So watch when Vasquez.
Dude, there's no way that's fan interference. The ball was out by 15
No.
feet.
No, it's if he's standing at the
here's
warning
the
track
thing.
and a fan reaches over, sure, but he was up in the
Right.
seats trying to make that catch.
Crazy.
And I feel like a lot of umpires do this, and it's, for Joe West probably kicked it off the whole. But there's a lot of umpires out there that almost have this sense of like, oh, you turned on the game to watch me. It's like, no, I didn't. Like, I did not turn on the game to watch you, peacock around the field. Like, that's not why I turned it on. Like, I turned it on to watch the best baseball players in the world play a game of baseball. And no one did it more consistently than Joe West. I mean, you saw it there in that old timey clip. I mean, that was from like the 1980s. And this dude's calling balls and strikes because the guy hasn't stepped in the box yet. Like, dude, who cares? Let the guy take his time. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here? It's a 3.5-hour game. Who cares if it's 3 hours and 45 minutes now? Because this one guy takes an extra 4 minutes. Like, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of them.
Like, it's not about him.
Yeah. Right. And it never should be. If you're a good ref or an ump, you shouldn't be taking over the game at all, at any time.
No, dude, I'm the best umpires and the best referees, you don't even notice that they're there most of the time.
You don't even know their name. Right. You don't know their name.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so that's just a little clip of some of Joe West calls.
I would encourage you guys to go watch those videos. There's like multiple videos that are like 8 minutes long. They're absolutely hilarious.
They're so good.
Morgan, I love that. Can't wait for you guys to get a cease and desist for using baseball highlights. I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, it's gonna.
But the joke, the funny part about that is like we will. Like they don't have enough going on trying to deal with this lockout. They're gonna try and get some.
Oh yeah.
3 buddies that talk about baseball on a weekly basis, get them shut down. Like what in the world? I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I mean,
wouldn't. The irony of it is we're the only thing that's promoting baseball for them. But Morgan's right. We're going to get some sort of like nasty grant from MLB saying cut it out.
Oh my goodness.
How dare you talk about our game and promote it?
You know what we'll do? We'll spell baseball wrong and come right back. There you go. Screw you, MLB.
This is basketball. What are you talking about?
Basketball. Oh, but yeah, I mean,
classic.
I mean, 45 seasons though. I mean, whether you're terrible or not, man, like that's a long time. Like it was like 60 something he came into the league.
Oh yeah.
I think they said, and I mean that's quite the dedication. But
it's impressive. It's impressive no matter what.
Absolutely. But I mean, yeah. So
what I didn't realize was that Joe West actually was working the 2012 perfect game by Felix Hernandez. That I didn't realize.
Oh wow!
I didn't figure you'd be able to. I didn't figure you could get a perfect game with Joe West behind the plate.
Was he actually behind the plate though? Or was he at like second base?
That's a good question. I didn't verify where on the field he was.
He was up the left field line.
Yeah, he was in the replay booth.
It's regular season. They didn't even have outfield on, so he's out there.
Right, but he's out there.
I'm going to be as far away from this as possible.
Oh man!
Could you imagine if they put Joe West and Angel Hernandez together?
No. No.
That'd be like a dream pairing.
Oh God. I mean, when it comes to umpire calls, the worst one ever that everybody knows is Armando Galarraga. Yeah.
Jim Joyce.
Yeah,
that one hurts. And Jim Joyce, he handled that with class, honestly.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna blow a call,
absolutely.
Like I mean, he handled it like he's like, I cost that kid. Yeah, absolutely.
He was in tears.
He's like,
and he's actually a pretty good umpire.
He said,
yeah.
So he's from Detroit.
Oh no.
I did.
So I thought I heard this. I thought I heard a story or read a story somewhere. Now this is terrible podcasting, but I think I read a story somewhere that said that he's from Detroit and he was convinced that the guy was safe. Like he was convinced, like he wasn't trying to like be a stand up. Like he in his brain, he saw safe. Like that's what he saw. So that's why like when Jim Leland came out and they were barking at him, he's like, no, he was safe. And then he saw the video after the game in the umpire room and he's like, he just lost it. He broke down. He started crying. He went to the Tigers locker room to like talk to the kid and be like, I'm so sorry. Like this kid's never going to have that opportunity again. No. And he ruined it. Yeah. And I guess he's from the Detroit area. So when he umpires games in Detroit, he goes to see his family. Like he stays with his family, not in a hotel. And I guess he didn't want to go home. So he went back to his family like late at night. He was just like, I effed up. Like I don't know what to do. And they were just like, it's fine. I think I swear to God, I read that somewhere.
I mean, and then next game for Galarraga to come up and give him the lineup card. I mean, like,
I know.
those are the things that baseball needs more of. You know, yeah, he made a mistake. He did face it, and then for Galarraga to have that class to go up to him and hand him the lineup card and shake his hand and look him in the eye and be like, "Dude, I'm okay. Like, I'm still here. I'm still in the dugout. Like, you're human. It's all good." You know, like that whole situation was handled with class, but it was easily one of the most gut-wrenching missed calls I've ever seen in my life.
That was painful.
Yeah,
and you were right. You were right, Sean. Joe West was at first base for Felix Hernandez's perfect game.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, there's no way he's behind the plate. There's just no shot.
I also love that comment for Morgan, a 6-hour game with Angel Hernandez and Joe West.
It'd be so bad. There'd be so many bad calls. Span of 9 innings. It would take all day to finish that game.
Put him in a Sox-Yankees game. It might take 12 hours.
Oh man.
But yeah, man.
So to your point, Nick, as bad as Joe West has been at times, that guy, he's an icon of umpiring. He's been there for so long. He's been part of so many big games, big series, big moments. You didn't always agree with the calls.
He's got his own country album.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a recording artist. He has his own country album out.
Right.
No, he doesn't. Does he really?
He does.
Dude, that's why they call him Cowboy Joe West.
All right. Well, that's going on my Apple playlist tomorrow. So I'm going to download that now. Goodness.
Yeah.
He's actually got two country albums for the record.
Oh, it's two?
Yeah, he's got 2.
That's awesome. It better be all baseball.
The first one was called Blue Cowboy. It was released in 1987.
1987. Good Lord.
So at one point, the as a joke, the Dodgers used his country music as their walk-up music for a whole series when he was the umpire.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was back in like 2015 or 2016, but the Dodgers for a whole series used his music as their walk-up music.
Oh, that's so great. That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh, all right. Well, thanks, Joe West. Hopefully the umpiring will be better from here on out if we ever get back on the field.
It can't get worse.
Yeah. Which that kind of segues into our next one here, 5th inning showdown, where we're going to either discuss whether, since we're in a lockout and we are all craving baseball now, the Super Bowl's over and we all saw one of the best halftime shows ever. The game was okay too. Would we rather see no baseball or would we rather see replacement players like Lamar Jackson playing for the Orioles?
That'd be sick. They should call him anyways, no matter what happens.
There's a lot of those guys, like Wes Welker. Was it Wes Welker? Or no, it was Edelman, right? Hitting that Fenway. And he's like putting him over the monster with ease. Yeah. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on those fellas?
Go, Sean.
If you asked me a month ago, I would have been like, no replacement players, but baseball is on a razor thin edge. And I know we've talked about it before, but let's just theoretically say that this lockout goes all year. If we have no baseball this year, I don't know how they recover from it moving forward. They might have they'll have it's not like baseball's going to go away. We're never going to see baseball again, but the popularity, I just don't know how they recover from that. I don't I prefer they just fucking figure it out and let's play ball. But asking me now, give me replacement players, and not even not joking around, but not even the guys like Mahomes, Russ, Kyler. They're all nasty ball players that had been drafted. But give me a bunch of scrubs. Give me a bunch of single A, double A, whatever. Just something. I think they're going to need it. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, pull up the guys that aren't in the MLBPA right now.
Right.
Pull up those minor leaguers. If you're in AAA, guess what? You're starting the year in the majors, on the major league fields, and let's make it happen because it just the two sides
and I
act
think
like they're close and then they're not, and it's annoying.
Well, I think this is This one's a unique one because I think most lockouts in the past, a player strike is one thing. It's a player strike. But like most lockouts in the past, like you can kind of look at one side or the other and be like, you guys are being children. But like this one is kind of on both of them. Like this one is like, I think the owners in the league need to come to a certain realization that like the players are humans and you need to treat them a little bit better and this, that, or the other. But I think the players also have some accountability here too, and be like, we're asking for the moon and the stars and we're not even settling for anything less. It's like, that's not how a negotiation works.
Right.
Like, and all they keep saying it, and I get where the players are coming from, but they're like, oh, Rob Manfred, all they say is good faith, but he doesn't do anything in good faith. It's like, all right, well, you guys are now being assholes too, because neither are you. Now, like, you're coming to the table knowing full well that you're going to reject everything that they send over too. So it's like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So replacement players, if anything, if all it accomplishes is one thing, maybe it'll light a fire under these players' asses to be like, you know what? Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, the best players in the league. No, you guys aren't replaceable, but 95% of you, you're replaceable. You're replaceable.
Yeah.
And, maybe it brings it back to earth a little bit. I don't know, but I just want baseball.
I'd actually argue if you brought replacement players up, you brought minor leaguers up, you'd get a better quality product on the field. No, you're not going to get the headliners, hitting the dramatic bombs, but you're going to get guys up there that are playing their asses off because they've got, they got nothing to lose. They're there to display their abilities, and the only risk in all this is that when this happened in '94 and they brought in the replacement players, although the replacement players never played,
But '94 was a strike, though.
Right, but MLBPA immediately banned or blacklisted all those players that came in as replacements, even though they never played. They blacklisted them. So the issue you've got is I would love to see replacement players, but I bet a lot of minor leaguers, because keep in mind, minor league baseball is going on as scheduled. Those guys are reporting for spring training in a few weeks.
True.
So, double A, triple A, single A, like those guys are all playing as normal. Their season's not impacted by this. But will those players jump and take the call up to play at the major league level? I bet a lot of them won't. But you could almost get the result of replacement players just by televising the AAA games. Let the world see these minor leaguers play. I don't care if they're not playing at Fenway. It'd just be nice to see some baseball, and you'd be seeing better baseball because these are guys that are hungry, that are trying to get to the next level, that would love to display their abilities for a bigger audience. And how cool would it be to have some AAA names kind of pop onto the scene and have people start following these guys? Talk about creating some hype for the future. If you've got fans that are watching AAA players play and starting to follow them. So I think that I definitely want to see baseball of some sort. And if the only way they can do that is televising AAA games, I'd watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even college. Bring D1 college to the forefront. Like instead of one game here or there on ESPN during the College World Series, like play these national ranked baseball teams.
Last year, I think with the the blow up of ESPN Plus, like I don't know if you guys have an ESPN Plus. If you don't, it's worth it. Yep. It's a handful of dollars a month. And I think last year they did a really good job of it. Now it's not on cable, like you have to go on your streaming device or whatever, but download the ESPN app and you could watch a good amount of college ball last year through ESPN Plus. And that's a great point, Nick. If that's what happens this year, like maybe now instead of having to go onto ESPN Plus, like it's on ESPN, like fuck it. Like that'd be awesome. I'd love to see some more. College baseball is awesome. College baseball is so much fun.
Yep.
So much fun to watch. And like we talk about schools like down south, schools in Texas, schools like down south Florida, the SEC, just general area. Like they get wild for college baseball games. Like that atmosphere is a blast.
Yeah.
So I'm with you 100%.
I wouldn't be shocked if Miami, the college or the university, would beat the Miami Marlins in a 7-game series.
At times, I know.
Some of those schools are stacked when you come to college talent.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Vanderbilt, probably 1 through 9 can go every year. Vanderbilt is like the top program in the country. I mean, and they just keep pumping out players left and right. It's
who insane. Is it? Which is the SEC school, Nick? Is it LSU or is it Mississippi State? There's one of those schools that like when you walk someone, they'll chant like ball 4. and then they just keep going. So like, let's say you throw a ball to like the next
Yeah.
guy, they'll start chanting ball 5, ball 6,
Yeah.
ball 7.
I think it was Texas A&M.
Oh, I think you're right. I think it is
Yeah.
Texas A&M. I think you're right. It is insane to watch. It is. It gets me jacked up on the couch. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't imagine being on the mound in that atmosphere. I'd throw
Dude,
13 straight balls. I wouldn't be able to find the zone.
No, the
13.
college crowd is so much better.
Yeah.
It's incredible. The
Yeah.
camera's like shaking. I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch any college sport, college football, college basketball, college baseball. I mean, the other night I caught the end of a college softball game. Girl from Florida Gulf Coast, or I think University of Florida, hit a walk-off against Alabama, and that literally the camera was shaking. The place was going nuts in extra innings.
Dude, listen, like being from the Northeast, like or from Maine in general, like the college atmosphere is nothing, dude. I moved down to Raleigh, and like, I mean, like seriously, like I went to Cameron Indoor yesterday, and it was a girls' game, and it was nuts. Like,
yep.
Like it was half and half. It was half NC State, half Duke. I went to Chapel Hill, half NC State, half UNC. Like, and dude, it is insane. Like the college atmosphere is just a different level down here, and it is awesome. And to show everybody in the country that would be incredible for baseball and softball. And like you said,
Dude,
it
we
would
should
promote players
just
going forward.
Yeah, we should give MLB an ultimatum. And we should be like, you know what, Major League Baseball, if you guys don't get your head out of your asses, we're going to become a college baseball podcast. And then that should really let it fire into their asses.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
I'm down.
But that's after we get the cease and desist letter for the baseball highlights, so we'll start showing college highlights.
Yeah,
Right.
Damn right.
Yeah, dude. I can't wait for baseball season to start. It's like a week away down here, man. Like softball's already started, but
I know.
I can't wait to get to a couple of games here. And they're like $10 to go. Like can't beat it with a stick.
Of course.
Unless you're Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, up here you only get the intense fans for college hockey at like UMaine and UNH, but I would love to go see, Florida State, Miami, University of Florida, Stetson, Rice, Vanderbilt play. Those places are nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Stetson, DeGrom.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like replacement players, probably not. Kind of just like Harrison said, like they would get blacklisted, especially if you brought up the minors. But
that's a good point. Yeah.
What about independent league? What about those guys?
You could absolutely call those guys up. You could, if I'm the owners, I'm going to do everything I can to promote my minor league talent to get fans hooked on the next generation. If I'm the Red Sox, I would have NESN just play nothing but friggin' Sea Dogs and Paw Sox until the lockout's over, just to pump up the next generation.
Woo Sox now.
The Woo Sox. I hate that, but yes.
It's brutal. It's the worst name ever.
It's awful.
So bad.
It's awful.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, if I was the Red Sox, I would have NESN just cranking minor league baseball, get fans to see the next generation, showcase who's coming up, build some excitement around them. Get your fans engaged at an earlier spot because, we look at the NFL with the draft, and like draft night's huge. Who are we going to get and are they going to start? And you look at the frenzy with Mac Jones and the Patriots this year. MLB doesn't have that. This is the next best thing for them is to start pumping up the AA and AAA guys in the pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're going to need to after this. Whether they end it tonight or they end it 5 months from now, they need to promote those guys because we're still another 2 months away from baseball. Like I said, even if they end it tonight, which obviously they're not going to, but I think that's the route to go. I think that's what they got to do. They got to promote within. You're right.
Maybe it's not replacement players, but we need replacement baseball of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if MLB does what it normally does and does nothing, and lets things lets stadiums go empty and the TV go black, they might as well just start throwing dirt on the grave.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll get into some more lockout stuff in a little bit. We are going to move on to seventh inning stretch. We have a lot in our heading home segment at the end of the show, so we'll get to all that stuff too. But let's excuse me, 7th inning stretch. We're going to do our National League Mount Rushmore here. There's probably a lot of overlap in this one. So who would like to take this one first?
So I'll start it off.
for
That way I get the clean list of 4 people, and you guys are the ones that are copycats.
All right, I'll go first then.
So, all right. So I'm gonna take Nick's number 1. I'm gonna take Willie Mays.
Of course, yeah.
I know that was your first one.
Yep.
So, Willie, I mean, it goes without saying, when you think of premier outfielders all time, Willie Mays is top of the list.
Yeah.
Right behind him has to be Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
being his godson doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
but
right.
I mean, it's crazy to think that that's who he grew up around. No wonder he was who he was. Third for me is Hank Aaron. I mean, Hank Aaron, that's kind of a no-brainer. And then the last one for me was Greg Maddux. And I look at Greg Maddux as the Rushmore of NL pitchers. I look at him. I look at that for a couple reasons. His stats are grotesque, but when you look, he was one of the elite premier pitchers in the steroid era, facing guys like Bonds at his peak. The guy put up some of his best stats in 95 through 2000 when these guys were roided out and hitting bombs. And the guy didn't throw gas. He just mowed you down. He basically let you hit it, and you just couldn't hit it hard. So I look at Maddux as my Mount Rushmore pitcher for the National League because the guy pitched through the heart of the steroid era and was at his best during it, which is a testament to what he was able to do.
Absolutely. But I mean, we're deleting that whole, 20-year period. So Greg Maddux actually didn't even pitch for the MLB. So that's
right. That era didn't actually happen. Right.
Yeah. No players existed in the 90s and early 2000s. So try again. You got a 5th? Just kidding. All right. Sean, you're 4?
No, you go ahead. I'll clean it up.
Goodness gracious. All right. I got the same 4 as Harrison. I'm just kidding.
No, you don't.
Well, I got Willie Mays at the top, Hank Aaron second. I've said this before. I've read this guy's biography. If you have not read it, you need to. It is a must read. It's just called Clemente. I don't have to say anything more. This guy off the field, on the field, he's probably my favorite player of all time. Like, no doubt. After reading that, everything he did, like humanitarian wise, like is just unprecedented, especially at that time. And then my Mount Rushmore pitcher is Bob Gibson. I mean, what that guy did, that guy would knock you on his ass if you got too close to the plate. I mean, even if you stepped in the batter's box and he didn't like it, it was coming for your ear hole. Just that bulldog mentality, like I'm gonna throw a heater, you're not gonna touch it. So, and just nasty.
It's that, and then it's like, oh, I'm just gonna throw 300 innings though. Like I'm gonna be here every 4 days.
Right.
Like I'm not coming at you once in a while. Like every 4 days, I'm gonna be here. You better be there with your best because I'm throwing 300 innings. He was a guy. I mean, I wish there's a lot of things that I always say like we were born in the wrong time. I love the era I was born in. Don't get me wrong. But if I could go back and watch Bob Gibson pitch in person, I wouldn't hesitate in a heartbeat. That'd be
I would
so
pull
awesome.
everything out of my savings to go watch him play.
That would be incredible.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. But yeah, and we've said before, there's tons of National League guys that you could pick too. I mean,
so many.
Those 4 are. I mean,
I feel like the National League is like surprisingly stacked historically. Like surprisingly stacked.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So it's hard not to have Willie Mays. I mean, it sucks because it's like 3rd time overlap, but it's like there's a reason why it's a 3rd time overlap with Willie Mays.
Right.
So we'll just leave it at that. I had a few other guys. That's why I said I'll go last because I'm like I'll just pick around. Hank Aaron obviously belongs on it. Not saying he doesn't belong on it, but for the nature of being a little bit different, I'll go Stan Musial.
Good choice.
For the Cardinals. Stan
Number 5
Musial,
for me.
I don't know if you guys heard of him. Pretty damn good ball player for St. Louis. Guy had 1,000 All-Star games, 1,000 top 10 MVP finishes. just littered. If you look at his baseball reference, it's actually one of the funnier ones to look at. It's just littered with just a bunch of bold letters. Just he led the league in a bunch of things a bunch of years. It's actually really funny to look at. And then I will have Jackie Robinson, my third. Jackie Robinson, all the things Jackie Robinson did. And then my pitcher, Tom Seaver.
Yep.
Tom Seaver, and I'm not even going to count the last 2 years of his career where he was with the White Sox and the Red Sox. He was a lifetime National League pitcher.
Yep.
Lifetime National League pitcher on really good teams, Cincinnati and the New York Mets. When the New York Mets were good New York Mets, Tom Seaver was part of it. When the Cincinnati Reds were good Cincinnati Reds, Tom Seaver was part of it. So he's my pitcher for the National League Rushmore.
Yeah.
I love the Stam Musial pick. I had him and I took him off the list for Bonds. I'm like, I feel like I have to, but
yeah, no, that's fair.
But he's one of those players that I feel like just doesn't get as much credit as the rest of that generation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he missed. So we talk about how Ted Williams missed 2 years, 2.5, 3 years, whatever it is for military service. Excuse me. Musial missed 1945.
Yep.
Comes back in 1946. Now, this guy hadn't played in over a year. Comes back in 1946. Plays 156 games. Gets to the plate 702 times. Has 624 registered at bats. 228 hits. 20 triples. Batting average of 365. Slugging percentage of 587. And total bases of 366. Obviously wins the MVP. This guy took a year plus off from baseball, comes back and just casually wins the National League MVP.
I know.
Like,
So it's the same thing with Willie Mays, believe it or not. A lot of people don't know that he left for the service for 2 years too, and he still hit 660 home runs. When he came back from the war, he hit 50 home runs in back-to-back seasons.
Yep.
Like
insane.
Like,
it's insane.
Dude, if he would have done that, if he would have hit 45 in each of those years he missed in the military, he would have passed Babe Ruth. Like, talk about sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here, dude, with that. Like,
Well, and what's amazing too is
insane.
these guys were traveling. These guys weren't traveling like these guys travel now in these comfortable planes. They were buses, trains, really shitty commercial flights. If they, to the extent that they had any access to that, depending on which era you're talking about. But they didn't have the training programs. The bats they used were heavy as hell. They were basically like carved out of a tree and handed to them. And these guys, they were in ballparks that were huge, just huge. I mean, imagine if you put one of those guys at Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium with a short porch. I mean, Willie Mays might have hit 1,000 home runs if he played with a short porch and right at Yankee Stadium. You look at what these guys were doing, some of these home run hitters, and it's mind-boggling. Granted, the pitching wasn't the same, but still nuts.
Dude, like I said about Stan Musial, this guy, and you look at it, and then you really study it, and it's just all these things become laugh out loud funny. This guy took 1945 off to go to war. Comes back in 1946, plays every single season until 1963, makes every single All-Star game. Didn't miss an All-Star game from 1946 to 1963. Out of all those years, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that he led the league in hits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that he had over 200 hits. I mean, what are we talking about here? This is stupid.
Well, what's amazing is he won those two MVPs in 46 and 48 after he came back, and he was the MVP runner-up 5 more times.
Yep. If you take out the 1947 year, which he was still an All-Star, but he finished his 20th in the MVP. You take that out, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consecutive top 5 finishes, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 consecutive top 10 finishes in the MVP.
It's silly.
That's insane.
Now guys just miss games because they have a hangnail.
Right, exactly.
Or it's load management. I need to rest.
Right. It's what are we talking about? And to Harrison's point, which something I never even gave too much thought to. But the guys nowadays, the luxury, the hotels they stay in, the way that they travel, I never really gave that much thought, but that's a great point. These guys would play 156, 158 games a year while riding on some bus and staying in some flea bag motel because the owner didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah, but it's all
crazy.
but it's all relative, right? They could have been staying in the nicest hotels as they had in 1940. You know, like it's all the the transportation.
No, I don't know.
I don't know,
It
man.
is
Like,
relative.
yeah, I mean, I
It is
get it.
relative.
I totally get what you're saying, but like, they also had top of the line transportation that was offered at that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's not here like it is now, but at the time, like,
Right. And I'm not saying I'm not saying the players are sitting there going, oh my God, look at the way we have to travel. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying with the ability of hindsight that we have to look back and be like, oh my God, these guys are taking 15-hour bus rides at the end of a game, and then they're still playing the next night.
right.
I mean, that's the crazy part. It's like for us to look at it, not necessarily for them back in the day. Like, they obviously didn't know the difference.
No, but for a guy like that to play every day, there was no nutrition program, there was no lifting program, there was probably wasn't even the strength and conditioning coach. It was just like, get out there, grab your glove and play. These players. So the players then probably wouldn't be as good today because the physical part of the game is advanced so far. But if you took the players from today and had them travel and live like those guys back then, they wouldn't put up the numbers they do today either. It's funny how much the game has evolved, how much the world has evolved around them. But I mean, to think about these guys being on trains and buses and putting up numbers like that and playing every freaking day, these guys don't play every day, staying in the penthouse, flying on chartered flights.
No,
I mean, come on.
You're right.
So
you'd have players quit if you made them travel like that again.
Absolutely. So we have some breaking news. I just came through my Apple Watch, the old trusty Apple Watch here. This is how far apart these two sides are, just to give you a preface. MLB just asked for the ability to eliminate hundreds of minor league playing jobs in latest labor offer to players. Are you kidding me?
They're going to use that to raise the money that the players want. Is that what the offer? The offer is?
Unbelievable. It's the complete opposite of what the players are asking.
What planet are these guys on?
Like, get out of town with that.
Good Lord.
Like, we're not playing this year. We're not. That's unreal. I have
Well, I guess that'll lead us into the heading home segment, huh?
Goodness, we still have one more.
Talking labor talks. Oh yeah, we do.
God.
Sorry.
Holy cow.
I got nothing on that really. Rounding third segment real quick because we do have a lot to get to for our heading home, as we just obviously said.
as we just broke the headline.
Oh goodness. Wow. We did best manager last week. We're going to do the worst managers. We did have two entries this week. My father-in-law, Dave DeBona, just said Bobby Valentine and left it at
he's
that.
on mine. I agree.
He's on mine too. I mean, he's awful.
Yeah, I did too. And Morgan said, Morgan Sawyer from the SOS podcast said Mike Scioscia, Dusty Baker, Tony La Russa.
Boy, I loved Mike Scioscia. That guy was an absolute tactician. That's a tough one for me.
I did too.
But what did he do? He brought the Angels to the World Series once.
Yeah, but look at who he brought them to the World Series with.
What do you mean?
And what did they done? That was a good team.
That wasn't a super talented team. That was a good team.
It was a good team, but managers make good teams, no?
I don't know. Maybe. Sure. They have some influence. I think the GM has a better impact on who's on the team than the manager does.
Right.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. But who are
those are good ones. Interesting.
I'll go with mine. I'll start off with Ted Turner. So
Ted Turner.
Listen to this. In 1977, the Braves were on a 16-game losing streak. Okay. He goes down and fires the manager on the spot and says, "You're good. I got it from here." He makes no pitching changes in the next game. He pinch ran for his catcher in the ninth and pinch ran for somebody else and threw in a pinch hitter, and he lost the game. So they went on 17 consecutive losing streak. And then the owner, or not the owner, but the GM was like, "Dude, you're done." So he ended his career at 0-1. So that's my first worst manager ever. Bobby Valentine, like we just said. His tenure with the Red Sox was an absolute joke. I mean,
disaster.
So many. But my favorite Bobby Valentine is when he gets tossed out of the game and then he shows up the next inning in the Groucho Marx glasses and the big nose with a mustache. Like, it's so great. I mean, but
he was such a clown.
And then my third one.
But hold on. We need to give Bobby Valentine his due respect. He did invent the rap.
That is true.
Yes, right. He did.
Yeah. He took a tortilla and put sandwich stuff in it. Good for you.
Yep. So every time you bite into a wrap, thank Bobby Valentine for that.
Tool. My third manager is an active manager, and he is a manager for the team that is in the Bronx, Aaron Boone.
Yes.
Seriously,
so bad.
Go away.
I
You
agree.
have so much talent. You
agree.
are the worst in-game manager I have ever seen in my baseball career, watching career, whatever. Like, the guy cannot manage anything inside a game. He is god awful.
That guy could not manage a lemonade stand.
It's brutal. I don't know how the GM fired all the coaches and left him on the bench. I don't get it.
Bad.
I don't get it. He's my third one, and I'll never understand. I can't. He's terrible.
So bad.
But
so bad. All right. So my three, and I'm a little jaded as a Red Sox fan, but my three are, number one is Joe Torre. I don't know what that guy did. That team managed itself. He didn't have to do anything. And when that team started to fade a little bit, and they weren't as dominant as they had been, I mean, that guy, the number of times he made weird bullpen decisions in games and caught. I mean, I feel like when he had that loaded, I shouldn't say loaded, but he had that really, really talented Yankees veteran team, you know, the guys like Brocious and Posada and Jeter and, I mean, Pettit and those. I mean,
I'm just going to interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is that you put Scott Brocious first on that list, not Derek Jeter, not Mariano.
Hey, I'm a third baseman at heart, man.
Funniest thing ever.
Scott Brocious, dude.
I'm a third baseman at heart. I always look out for the third baseman. Scott, but like that was
Soho.
Yeah, that was. But those were that was a veteran ball club. He just filled out the roster, and those guys went and played. Like
absolutely,
he wasn't making any calls from the dugout. Those guys were doing their own thing. And then the minute that those guys started to kind of fall off, you know, that team went off a cliff because he wasn't going to manage them to any wins. Yeah. Bobby Valentine, obviously, that one goes without saying. And then the other one for me is Grady Little. That guy had no business managing the major leagues. He was way over his head. He proved it time and time again. Why the Red Sox let him go as long as they did, I don't know.
It's fair.
Yeah, Grady Little. The one thing I do feel bad about Grady Little in the sense is, like, I know I've said it before, but everybody wanted Pedro to stay on that. Like, there was nobody being like, go get him. Like, it was Pedro. Like, it backfired on him, but like that was far from his worst decision.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like it ends up being his lasting image of him leaving Pedro on the mound in 03. But like that was far from his worst decision. I agree. I don't think he was an awesome manager by any stretch. But like I do feel bad that like his legacy is tied to like Pedro when it's like, I don't know, man. Like that was I probably would have done the same thing. Not that I'm some great MLB manager, but I probably would have done the same thing. Like Pedro's your horse.
Absolutely. He
Valentine
was a minor league manager that probably should have never been in the major leagues. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had Valentine on mine too. We're not going to keep on with the Bobby. But the other two I had, one was Bob Guerin. You guys remember Bob Guerin in Oakland?
Oh my God, yeah.
Now, granted, he was never given like the 98 Scott Brocious Yankees. I'll give you that. He was never given those phenomenal teams.
Jeez.
Have you guys ever looked like Bob Guerin never managed a season over 500?
No.
It's brutal.
And he was there for like 5 years.
But he
was never over 500. And then I was looking more into it, and I didn't know this at the time. But you guys remember Houston Street was in their bullpen when Bob Guerin.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Had Houston Street went on record and said, like, that from ages 6 until like 28 in sports, he had never encountered a worse communicator than Bob Guerin. He was like the guy just didn't know how to manage a group of people. It's like I feel like that's kind of important to be a baseball manager. Maybe that's why you weren't so good at it. So Bob Guerin, and then my third one, Willie Randolph. Willie Randolph.
Oh, yes, so bad. That's a great one.
So
That
bad.
is a good
with the
one.
Mets. His first year with the Mets, they won the division. They won like 97 or 98 games. And then the year after, they lost in 7 games to St. Louis in the NLCS. And then the next year after that, he had like an 8-game lead with 17 games left. And they blew it by losing like 3 out of 4 to like the Nationals, who won like 8 games that year. And he blew it.
Oh God.
Willie Randolph was terrible. Now, granted, he did become the scapegoat. Like they had they had other issues, I should say, other than Willie Randolph. But he certainly wasn't helping the situation.
Yeah, there are so many bad managers out there, and some of it was that they were just like they had terrible organizations around them. But then you've got so many other guys like Buddy Bell, who was horrendous with like 3 different organizations, and
Lloyd McClendon was terrible.
Oh man, you had Larry Rothschild, and you all these guys out there. Lloyd McClendon's a good one. I love that one. That were just so bad everywhere they went. But the worst part about it is they got multiple opportunities.
Yeah, like Clint Hurdle.
Well,
yeah, Ned Yost. I mean, how many times are you going to put a guy in the same job
Ned
that
Yost,
you can't do?
Another one. But it's like baseball manager, like GM, NFL GM, like it's all an old boys club. Like as long as you know the right guys, like you're going to get another shot. Like you just have to convince the right person. Like, and that's kind of where the whole NFL thing, not that this is a football podcast, but the whole NFL thing that's coming out with Brian Flores and all that, like it's hard to look at it and think objectively like that. Yeah, some of these guys are getting fucked because like some guy knows some guy that says he's a good person. So like, we're going to give him another shot, even though his entire track record is terrible and he doesn't know how to do the job clearly. Yeah. Baseball manager, I feel like is right. Like you just see the same names being recycled year after year after year.
Yeah.
Do you guys
look
remember?
That's with Showalter coming back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a good hire, but it's a recycled name that's coming back.
It is. But I think Buck has proven that he can win at this level. Maybe not a title. He hasn't won a title. But Buck's proven, think about where Baltimore was when Buck took over. Next thing you know, they were in the race for the division for a couple of years.
Yeah.
He's had the experience of taking over a team like that and building them up.
Hold on, Morgan. We're gonna get to that comment in a second, bud. We got you. That's in our next segment. But
do you guys remember? You guys remember Don Wakamatsu with the Mariners? That was the guy that got in the fight in the dugout with one of the players, and that was when Milton Bradley had his epic meltdowns like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, crazy.
So
Don
many bad
Wakamatsu.
examples.
That's right. Yeah.
Terrible.
All right. We are going to move to the heading home segment. This segment, I'm going to tell you right now, is not going to be necessarily a happy segment. There's a lot of stuff that kind of happened this past week that is really sad. Some stuff that has come out about Tyler Skaggs' overdose. It has come to the attention that Matt Harvey, who used to pitch for the Mets, and he was with the Angels at the time, actually was the one that supplied Tyler Skaggs with the drugs, and they were doing opioid painkillers, right? So like after an outing, they would take these or whatever after a workout, whenever, and then that's what they are linking to the overdose. And they're saying that Harvey is going on trial, I think, in the next couple of days, or he might have already gone on trial. They're keeping that kind of private. I don't think you can see the trial anywhere, but they're just kind of releasing some of the stories of the defense and stuff like that. But Morgan makes a comment. He's like, like negligence, right? I mean, people had to have known this was happening, right? I mean, when we were in the dugouts for Little League, where everyone's slapping icy hot on your shoulders after a game or like before a game, like that doesn't go unnoticed. Like it's definitely negligence, and it's terrible that it had to come to that. But I guess it's a lot bigger than just the Tyler Skaggs incident, unfortunately. But
I think that's the scary part, just to see how deep this goes.
Right.
But yeah.
Go ahead.
What were
No, I
you
was just gonna
saying?
say it's interesting to see how deep this goes. I mean, you've got all kinds of players getting named as being involved. I mean, you got Garrett Richards, who's with the Red Sox. You know, he apparently was paying money to this Eric K guy to pick up drugs, and Matt Harvey was getting pulled in as possibly the source of the other drug that Skaggs had when he died, and it sounds like at least within the Angels, because you really don't have an inside peek at anybody else. It sounds like there were a lot of people involved in in the kind of the moving around of the stuff like fentanyl, and a lot of guys that were taking this stuff, they're crushing these crazy opioids and snorting them, and it was almost like a cultural thing within that organization. There's a lot of players that are now being pulled into this as having been involved in it, and also potentially users themselves, and that's a massive organizational problem that it was going on at that level and nobody knew or nobody said anything.
Nobody said
It's
anything. Yeah.
terrible. Yeah, I mean, and there's really no excuse for it, to be completely honest. Zero. I mean, it's too bad.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, it's sad. I it's there are some people who, people with drug issues hits closer to home than others. But it's sad. It's sad that somebody so young had to lose his life over it. And it's sad, in everything. The cover-up's always worse than the crime. Not to say that the crime wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but, it's just, now we got everyone trying to save his face as much as possible and pointing fingers at this guy and that guy and the other guy, and it's his fault and he got it from him. And it's just, and I know this isn't helping the conversation, but it's just sad,
And I mean, just think of the trauma that the Angels have gone through. They had Nick Aidenhart was a couple of years before that. You know, I mean, that was a car accident, completely different. But I mean, still another young kid taken way, way too soon, and it's just this could have been prevented. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's sad about it.
What's disappointing in all this is like literally the defense for Eric K is basically just saying this kid was a druggie. He was doing all kinds of stuff. How can you point at what I gave him as being what killed him? In the meantime, this poor kid's mother is sitting in the courtroom through the whole thing, listening to basically the organization and Eric K talk about this kid like he's some sort of like, hoodlum druggie that they just like, couldn't help. It's appalling, some of the conversation that goes back and forth and the arguments they're making about this kid, because this is an organizational problem and they're trying to paint it like this kid was just some crazy druggie that they couldn't get their arms around.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is that it's this poor young man had to die, and that's why it's being talked about now. But I think we're all kidding ourselves that we think that the Los Angeles Angels is the only locker room in professional sports that something like this is happening in. And it's coming to life now because this poor young man lost his life, and that's terrible. It's terrible. But like, if you don't think this is happening in other professional sports locker rooms, they're like that. And that's, Morgan makes a point here. It's the grossest of sports, right? Because it's what are you willing to compromise as an owner or a general manager or a head coach / manager? Like, what are you willing to compromise morally because you have a really talented player? And we don't want the really talented player to miss games. So we're just going to morally compromise ourselves. We're going to tell other people to look the other way, and we'll do the best we can to help them. But at the end of the day, and that's sad and it's awful. And it's not the first time it's happened. And I feel like people aren't learning their lesson. I hope it's the last, but it's sad.
No, but to your point, Sean, if this kid hadn't died, nobody would be talking about this still. Like, it would be like, whatever, these guys are fine. They're just taking the edge off as this is happening. I mean, opioids are everywhere around the country. You can't imagine that these players aren't involved in them too.
Guys remember? Do you guys, Jimmy Hayes, he played for the Bruins. He's a Dorchester kid. Dorchester, I know you guys are from Maine, but the part of Massachusetts I'm in, Dorchester's 10, 15 minutes away. Yep. And that was a weird one for me. Like, that hit home, like, particularly close. Not that I know the Hayes family personally, but it was his son had just turned like 2 or something like that. And he has a son and a daughter that's the same age that my twin brother has a son and a daughter. Right. So it was kind of weird. Like, Jimmy Hayes and I are around the same age. He's got kids the same age my brother has kids, and it's like you never know what these kids are going through or what these men are going through. You know, and that was when that came out and that information came out about Jimmy really struggling with painkillers and opiates after he had finished playing because he got hooked on them while he was playing because he felt like he needed to take them in order to play every night, you know? And again, no one would have known that about Jimmy Hayes if he didn't die. If Jimmy Hayes was alive right now, I would have no idea that Jimmy Hayes had an issue. Not that it's my business. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying like stuff like that doesn't get out until unfortunately, like we don't have a control on the situation. Like there's not a handle. These owners and these teams and these clubs think they have a handle on it and they don't.
Yeah. I mean, look at the congressional hearings for the steroids, right? That I don't think that would have been made such a big a deal until those high school kids lost their lives because of steroids. And then it became a legislative issue and it became a big hearing. It became a big deal. You know, like it sucks that somebody has to pay the ultimate price to bring this to the forefront. And it's completely, it's gross. Like Morgan said, I mean, it really is. And it's not just baseball. It's a sports problem for sure. 100%. But it kind of streamlines into the next thing we had was Jeremy Giambi passed away. He played for the Oakland A's. He played for the Boston Red Sox. He was the one that was crossing the plate on the Jeter flip play, which we all agree he was safe. But his was a suicide, like I said. And I mean, that's kind of like a side effect of steroid use, probably, right? I mean, I'm speculating. I don't know if that report has necessarily come out, but I mean, that's just another side effect of, I mean, his brother was taking it. I would imagine that.
I think we lost Nick.
Yeah, we did.
Goodness. But anyways, it's not a true podcast show until I get kicked off and come back on. So yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know where I got cut off, but yeah, just the drug use, the steroid use, you know, leading to, you know, possibly mind altering results, which sucks.
Well, it's hard.
Yeah,
I mean, it's as long
and
as
it was
you
at
have,
his parents' house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you have competitive professional sports that make a lot of money and pay their players a lot of money, like you're going to have that temptation for these players to do the ultimate, whatever they need to do to get ahead and to stay ahead and all that. And I get that. That's always going to be part of it. It always has been and it always will be. You know, I just think sports in general, not just baseball, like, you know, we got to get to the point where the people that are bringing these drugs into the locker room are like punished,
Severely.
not just like, like not like, oh, it's this player's fault for taking that particular drug, which it is. I'm not letting the players off the hook by any stretch, but like we got to cut this off at the source, you know, and it's a shame. And, you know, this Eric K guy on trial for Tyler Skaggs, like, you know, this guy should be punished. If everything that's coming out is true, you know, if he's the one getting this fentanyl and all this stuff like in the locker room to access to these players, like, hell yeah, man. I mean, this guy needs to be held responsible for some of that, you know, and I just think we're at a dangerous place. Like it's easy to get in a lot of these players now, like they feel like they have no other option. Like they have to take it. And if they don't get ahead, they're going to fall behind. And if they fall behind, they're going to lose their jobs. And I sympathize with that. Like that sucks, but this is.
And think about these players. They have that addiction personality, right? Because these guys did get where they are without being addicted to their craft. You have to be addicted to your craft, so they already have those tendencies, and it's not going to take much to get them hooked. You know, unfortunately, that's just how it is.
And it's nothing for these guys to undergo a major surgery in the off season, whether it's a shoulder, a knee, an ankle, you know. And what do they give these guys
a lot of them do?
Yeah, exactly. It's you know, it's very common for these guys to get some level of surgical work done in the off season for a nagging injury. And, you know, what do they give these guys to help them stay comfortable and relaxed? They give them opioid, you know, painkillers, you know, and when you keep feeding them to these players as they get these surgeries done, they begin to get accustomed to it and make them feel better. They get through injuries, and that becomes the go-to of, well, I know if I'm feeling this, if I just grab a couple of these, I'll be all right. And that turns into a daily ritual and a daily habit. And what's mind-blowing to me is that, Major League Baseball is collecting random urine samples. Why aren't they testing for this crap? Like, why isn't that just part of the drug panel that they run? It's it's one of those things that most Americans at some point in their life get drug tested with whatever job they do. Why isn't that just part of the panel they run for these guys? It's, if nothing else, it's a protective measure for them.
Well, I mean, I think it gets tricky with, like, because some of these things are what they are allowed to be prescribed by the team doctors. It's just like the dosages, I'm guessing, and it's some of these things. It's like, all right, like, you need it, and I get that. Like, I'm certainly sympathetic to that. Like, if you need it, you need it. But like, I think it's more about, like, I think some of these players and we need to get the people that are bringing this shit into the locker room taken care of. Like, that, to me, that's first and foremost. But secondly, like, if it becomes, this player's had X amount of surgeries in Y amount of years, and they're constantly given this oxy or whatever painkiller they're given, like, I feel like the players and the individuals, we need to realize, like, as people, man, like, hey, like, say I'm hooked. You'd be like, hey, I need to talk to somebody. Like, I need help getting off of this, and I feel like it's getting to the point where some of these guys, it's too late. Like the Jimmy Hayes one I just went back to because I was just reading about it again recently, and it's like, it became a little bit too late, but there was no, like, at the end there, like, there was recognition, like, I have a problem, like, I need help, like, I need to, but it was too little too late, and it's sad. I mean, it's gone on for a long time. It's not just, this isn't new to baseball or professional sports, but it's tough when they can, every few years something like this is coming up, whether it's a current player or a former player like Jeremy Giambi, and it's just like, man, it's just sad.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, our hearts go out to their families. Like, it's terrible, sucks. But yeah. We are going to move on to something a little more cheery, but not at the same time, which we're going to get into the lockout update now. So some of the things that the MLB has given the players or whatever, they have accepted the universal DH. There's going to be no compensation for a free agent. So then the team does not have to give up a draft pick for signing a top free agent. And then they move to a draft lottery. I mean, does the draft lottery move the needle for you guys? I mean, it doesn't really do anything. The draft's already a crapshoot anyways. Like, does the lottery do anything?
But it solves for the problem. The players have been very vocal about they don't like tanking as an organizational strategy. And so what the draft lottery does is it doesn't eliminate, but it reduces the chance of a team going out there and tanking and automatically getting the first pick. That could actually potentially backfire on you. And the only real test of that was the NBA, and the NBA's had pretty good success with the draft lottery. But to your point, Nick, in the NBA or the NFL, like, you're drafting players in the first few rounds who are on your roster and many times starters on day one.
And they're the top 70, right? They're the top 75 players in college. You know what I mean?
MLB's not. MLB's drafting all these high school and college kids who might be excellent high school and college kids, but the developmental curve for baseball is so much steeper. And it just, there's not a huge benefit to the draft. So does it reduce tanking? Maybe, but how many first round picks ever actually make it?
Dansby Swanson.
Right. Just not many.
Right. But I think that's even more to the player's point of just like, listen, guys, it's such a crapshoot anyways. Like, why are we trying to lose games in 2019? Like, even the guy that we potentially get at number 1 overall isn't going to make a difference till 2024. Like, what are we trying to lose 2019 games for? Like, I think in that respect, I think it moves the needle a little bit for the players, because it's like, all right, like, at least they're hearing us about the whole, tanking for the top pick type of situation. Yep. I mean, for me personally, like, it doesn't make it worse, but it doesn't really do much for me. Like, it's fine. And I mean, if it's something they agree to and they implement, like, I'd be interested to see how it plays out. But I do think that if it does immediately, which it should immediately, take away this whole, like, Pirates and Royals, like, who loses more games to get number 1 overall. Like, if it takes that away, then I would call that a success.
Well, and you want the ultimate case study why the MLB draft doesn't matter. If picking first was an advantage, the Pirates should be hoisting banners left and right. But I mean,
no, for sure.
they still
For
suck.
sure.
You know, they haven't been relevant in years, and they picked first every other year. I mean, the MLB draft is a complete and utter crapshoot. You honestly could have no draft and let them just go sign a bunch of kids to minor league contracts. It'd be the same outcome because most of those first round picks you never even see.
Yeah.
It's to Nick's point. It's baseball is all about how you develop that player.
Yep.
And the teams, regardless of where they pick in the first round, if they have good development programs, their players are going to pan out more often than not. And if you have a shitty development program, that you could pick number one every year, and like it's never going to make a difference. Like you got to develop these kids. Like this is not if football, basketball. I mean, they play right away. This is not. It's totally different.
So
Right.
here's a great example. So Mike Trout was picked number 25 overall. He was selected after fellow outfielder Randall Grichuk. So Randall Grichuk was actually drafted ahead of Mike Trout. Who the hell is that?
You don't know who Randall Grichuk is?
No,
Yeah,
but
Rank played for the car.
Oh, but in the
in
scheme
terms of
things,
relation
okay.
to Mike Trout, it's
Oh,
like
right. Yeah. But no, I see. Right, like no one knew who Mike Trout was, and he got drafted after.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I got you.
like in comparison, it's like you got him at number 25. Wow.
Right.
But it's amazing that Nolan Arenado, second round draft pick. Paul Goldschmidt was picked in the 8th round. I mean, the draft doesn't friggin' matter.
No, absolutely not.
JD Martinez was a 20th round pick. I mean, most of those, it's insane where what the draft actually turns into in MLB.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about the universal DH?
Hate it.
I know. See, I do like both sides of the game. Don't get me wrong, but no one talked about the universal DH in 2020 when they had it for 60 games. It wasn't an issue. I feel like everyone's blowing it up like this. It's a huge, huge issue that they're doing this. But like, I mean, I get you like the National League game. I like the National League game too. But like, I don't think it's that. It's not as big as people are blowing it up to be. Does that make sense?
Agreed.
Well,
They
yeah,
did it in
I-
2020, and no
I-
one talked about it. Like, oh, both leagues have the DH. Like, this is stupid. No one talked about that.
Right. I've resigned myself to the fact that it's going to happen. Like it's coming. I mean, it's so I try to look at it like, do I like it or not is not really important. Like, I do think it will add, and it's, something that's been brought up before, but it adds an important position to 15 other teams. So, 15 other teams now need that DH spot. So it creates a little bit more kind of aggressiveness in the free agent market in the offseason, a little bit more aggressiveness on, hey, like if the Mets can identify, and I'm just using the Mets as a Mets fan, but if the Mets can identify someone in single A, like, hey, maybe this guy, we're going to just really have him focus on the hitting, and he's going to be that DH in the next few years. That's kind of what our vision is. We can see a little bit different developmental of players. I'm a big National League guy. Like, I love the pitchers hitting, but I've resigned myself to the fact that it's going away.
Yeah.
What I like it to say, if it was honestly to me the other way around, I take the DH out completely and I make both leagues with the pitchers hit.
Totally agree.
But they would never do that. So, I just resigned myself to that happening. But,
yeah.
I don't hate it, and it's not going to take a lot for me to get used to. But
no, but
it's a little,
but it's not a move that gets people to go like, yes, I'm watching baseball again. Like, I'm in. It's people are going to go,
right.
What does that matter? Like Sarah's point, the strategy of pitchers batting, it does change the game. And then Morgan goes one step further, and it does. It takes a lot of, the double switch is gone. How you manage your bullpen late, how you win, and how you bring bullpen relievers in. It changes things, and you're going to have, to his point, you have more delays, more bullpen moves, because now you're not worried about who's coming into the bullpen, because they don't have to hit. You don't have to mess with your lineup, and you're going to get a game that's got more offense, more pitches taken, longer games. You're going to get that universally now.
But they kind of already did that when they made the 3 batter minimum for pitchers. They already kind of took that strategy out. So like it's
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. My main argument with it is like, I mean, I don't care. I knew it was coming, whatever. But my main argument was in 2020, the COVID year, no one said a goddamn thing about both leagues having a DH. No one said anything about it. No one complained about it. No one, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's my biggest issue. It's like everyone is just blowing it up like, oh my God, this is you're taking away a huge part of the game, when in 2020 no one mentioned anything about it when it happened.
Well, it's also the human psyche of it though. Like we all knew that it was a temporary thing in 2020. Like it's you could look at it now. I'm not just to play devil's advocate for you, but like you could look at 2020 and be like, you know what? It's 60 games. It's COVID year. They're gonna bring the regular National League ball back next year. Like I can deal with it for a year. But like when you tell someone that something's changing forever, like people get nervous about that. Like, and I get it to an extent. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, if it even goes through, man. I mean, at this point, I'll take this. If it's that or no baseball, like fuck it, give me the DH. Give me 9 DHs. I don't care. Like
just have a home run derby every game.
Yeah, this is MLB. This is MLB saying, hey, look at what we're doing. Pay no attention to the problems over here, though. But look what we're doing over here. You're gonna love it.
Right.
You know, it's the typical nonsense about trying to almost distract you from the real issues by throwing out a change that everybody kind of went, okay, yeah, moving on.
I just going back to that the MLB, like my phone's blowing up. ESPN Bleacher Report saying the MLB wants to cut all these minor league jobs. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to even. We're sitting here talking about you should promote minor leagues while the MLB is out, and it's like, oh well, you know what? Let's just cut single A. Let's cut out double A. But it would also help with the draft, right? It would help with the draft lottery. Mm-hmm. You know, you would have less people to draft, which means you'd only be taking the top 1% coming out of college.
Yep.
There'd be less spots, so you'd have better players. I mean, I can see both sides.
I mean,
the players want more money.
The problem that you have is it. I don't think it's going to be good for long term of baseball. Baseball just inherently is such a difficult game. And it's a grind, and it's you need those younger leagues to develop these players. Like they're not doing it. They haven't done it this way for decades for shits and giggles. Like there's a reason why you have so many lower leagues. Like you have to develop these guys. And especially if you're drafting kids that are 18, 19 years old, like look, I mean, how many times do we see it, dude? Like year in and year out, every baseball season, there's one young person that comes up and they have a great first half of the year. And then they burn out because it's a grind. It's a long season. It's difficult. And you're playing against the best players in the world. You're playing against the best of them every night. It's hard. And, like, you have to develop them. And it might be good for the short term. Like, cutting out these minor league jobs, like, might help the players get on board, get more money in the pre-arbitration pool and all the things that they're clamoring for. But I just don't see how that helps 10 years from now.
No.
But maybe that's another bridge we cross. Maybe they're saying that. Maybe they're punting that issue, and they're just saying, you know what, in the next CBA, we're going to deal with that then. Which I'm not so sure it's a good strategy, but what the hell do I know? So I don't know.
Right. Well, and so you look at what they're actually proposing. They're talking about that domestic reserve list, which is basically how many minor leaguers they have rostered. So currently it calls them to have 180 rostered minor leaguers. That's a lot of freaking minor leaguers. First of all,
that's
and they want to reduce.
Yeah.
Per team, 180 rostered minor leaguers.
Yeah,
so they want to. MLB wants the ability in the future to reduce that to 150. So you do 30, 30 across 30 teams. You're talking 900 players just like that go. But at the same time, these, to your point, Sean, because baseball is so tricky, they do carry a lot of minor leaguers. But 180 rostered minor leaguers, that's a lot of teams. Do you really need, short season rookie ball A, low A, high A, double A,
No,
triple
probably
A?
not.
Like
Absolutely not.
there's already too many minor league teams and too many levels of the minor leagues. If a guy's not at A level, why do you need rookie ball? Like, there's just so many tiers to it. So I kind of understand MLB's response of, can we maybe shave some minor leaguers off this list that we're carrying? But at the same time, to Sean's point, in a few years that could have a problem if they don't have that same depth of pool they can develop. But that's a lot of money that MLB puts up to carry these minor leaguers around.
And I get it. Teams would just have to change their strategy. Like your strategy of building your roster, instead of building it for 10 years at a time, you're building it for 4 or 5 years, and then you're going to have to start up from scratch. I get that. Like teams are just going to have to be willing to say, okay, well, if we're going to agree to this, and again, this is what the Players Association, but this is going to fall on the front offices and the owners. It's not necessarily going to fall on the players. Like this is now going to be the GMs and the player personnel and all those people are going to be responsible for kind of changing the way they work. But yeah, listen, if that's the overall thing that's going to get the players back to the table, then fine. By all means, cut high A ball and cut winter league or whatever the hell you got to, like, whatever. If that's where we're at now, so be it.
Yeah, and the hard part is that, like, based on the cost of the average minor leaguer, you're talking, you might save $1 million, a couple $1 million, by cutting a bunch of minor leaguers out. Because the beauty of it is they don't pay these kids anything. They're making basically meal money. And until you get into like AA, you don't make anything. You can't live on what you make. You're making a couple grand in season plus food.
Unless you're making Castillo.
Right. Yeah. Right. These kids are making 15, 20 grand a year. But with MLB, it's, the coaching staff, facilities, transportation, like all sorts of other costs, but they're going to save what, $1 million, maybe $2 million. That doesn't bridge the gap of a bonus pool of 15 million versus 100 million. It doesn't change the competitive balance. Like it's, MLB is tripping over dollars, chasing dimes here.
Yeah.
I get where they're coming from, but that's not, you're not solving the problem with that by making that move.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a start though.
Yeah. And hopefully it is. I mean, if that's the, if that's the rock to get rolling, I don't know. They have to play this year. We were kind of texting back and forth before the show. Like, if they don't play this year, baseball's not going to come back. It's going to be really hard to regain any type of momentum.
Well, the game will come back. Like, I don't think we'll never see baseball again. But baseball as we know it, like universally loved and all this, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm with you. That sucks. I hate it. But we're gonna try to keep it fun. So before we go, before we wrap up, we have taken our choice for the top 64 players of all time, and we are gonna put them on a bracket, like March Madness style, and we are going to do each section 1 week at a time. We are going to post the bracket on our page so you guys can take it, fill it out, and have it on and fill it out, and then you can follow along with us as we come up with who wins each matchup. So we'll present the bracket on Saturday, which is another announcement. The three of us are going to be together on one screen at a table, just shooting the shit. It's going to be awesome. I'm so pumped. But all three of us are going to be together doing the podcast. So that's special. That's Saturday at 8:00. We are planning to go live then. So come join us then, and we'll have the brackets out at some point this week. And then we'll explain it a little bit better than what I did right then later on. So we are Selection Saturday, as Morgan said. Yeah,
exactly.
It's gonna be great. So you guys will have those brackets. You can fill them out, and then we'll each week we'll tell you who we choose out of those matchups, and we'll get a winner. So
follow along and tell us how wrong we are.
It's gonna be a fun one.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one.
All right, so we'll see you guys on Saturday. Thanks for watching, and see you.
Thanks, everybody.